In this screencast, we are going to talk about one-step equations and how to solve one-step equations. The main thing that you need to remember is that when solving one-step equations, you are going to always use the inverse operation, and the inverse operation is just talking about the opposite operation. So for example, the inverse operation of addition is subtraction. The inverse operation or the opposite operation of subtraction is addition. The inverse operation of multiplication is division. And the inverse operation of division is multiplication. So most of us should know opposites are opposite operations. So just a few steps for solving one-step equations. The first thing you're going to do is draw a line straight down through the equal sign. And basically what that's going to do is set your equation up so that it's balanced on each side of the equal sign. So whatever you do on one side, you're going to do to the other side. You're then going to use the inverse operation to get the variable or the letter by itself. Your end goal is to always get the variable by itself because that's what you're solving for. And then remember that whatever you do on one side of the equal sign, you should also do on the other side. So let's take a look at a few addition examples, and these should match the worksheet that you have in front of you. So if you take a look at the first example, like I said before, our first step is to draw the line down through the equal sign, and then we are going to solve. We are going to solve for x. So I have a plus 2 over here, so I'm going to subtract 2 on both sides. Plus 2 minus 2 becomes 0. So I have x equals 3 minus 2 is 1. Now how do I know that's correct? I'm going to do my check. The check is very important. That's where I'm going to take this answer and I'm going to put it in for x. So I'm going to put 1 plus 2 equals 3. 1 plus 2 equals 3. And 3 is also equal to 3. So this works. So x would be equal to 1. Once again, I'm going to, second example, z plus 4 equals 9. I'm going to draw my line down through the middle, subtract 4 on both sides. Z is what's left on my left-hand side. 9 minus 4 is 5. So let's check. If I put a 5 in for z, I have 5 plus 4, and that's supposed to equal 9. 5 plus 4 is 9, and 9 is equal to 9, so that also works. Go ahead and try these two examples on your own, and then once you think you have an answer, let's start the video again and you can check your answer with mine. So if you go ahead and look, you'll see that in our first example that you were doing by yourself, x is equal to 5, 5 plus 6 is 11, so that works, and in our second example, m would be equal to 7. Let's move on to subtraction. So if you take a look at subtraction, the opposite of subtraction is going to be addition. So we are going to add in order to find the answer or the variable. So once again, draw your line straight through the middle. Whatever I do on one side, I do on the other side. So I'm going to add 3 because I'm really subtracting 3. I'm going to have y left over. 2 plus 3 is 5. Once again, I'm going to do my check. So I'm going to put 5 in for y. So 5 minus 3 should equal 2. That does work out, so 5 is my y. Take a look at our second example. Z minus 2 equals 9, so we're going to add 2 to both sides. These cancel. I'm left with z. Z equals 11. When I go to do my check, I have 11 minus 2 equals 9. 11 minus 2 is 9, and 9 is equal to 9, so that works as well. So inverse operation, keep your sides balanced. Let's take a look at these examples. So let's go ahead and have you solve these two subtraction examples, whether you do it on your note sheet or you do it on a separate piece of paper. You should be going through the steps. And the reason why is because later on in your algebra career, you're going to need to know how to solve one-step equations that aren't going to be as simple as this. So this is just getting you comfortable with the process of solving for a variable. So go ahead and check your answers. You'll see that in our first example, z should be equal to 7, and in our second example, k should be equal to 13. Moving on to multiplication. If you look at multiplication, you'll see that we have 5 times m. Remember that when a number is next to a letter, that means multiplication. So the inverse operation of multiplication would be division. So we're going to divide by 5 on both sides. So we have m equals 2. We're going to substitute 2 in for m to do our check. So if we do 5 times 2, that should equal 10, and 5 times 2 is 10, so that checks out. Now if you don't feel comfortable using the fraction bar as your division sign, you can always just write divide by 2 on both sides. That's totally up to you. It's the same exact thing, but normally in algebra we use the fraction bar to help us find our answer. So I'm going to draw my line down the middle, fraction bar, divide by 2, 6 divided by 2, k equals 3. I'm going to check. So 2 times 3 should equal 6, and 6 is equal to 6. Let's have you try these two multiplication examples on your own, and once you think you have your answer, go ahead and click play again. So you should see that in our first example, t would be equal to 3, and h would be equal to 4. Final operation that we're going to look at today is division. So division, the opposite of division is multiplication. So anytime we are dividing, we are going to multiply to find our variable. So if you take a look at x divided by 2, we are going to multiply. And sometimes it might make more sense, especially if you're dealing with an x, to use your dot. So we're going to multiply 2 times 2. Okay, and really what that does is it just cancels out your 2's, so you're left with x. Once again, I'm going to do that on the other side. So 5 times 2 is 10. So let's check. If I put a 10 in for x, I have 10 divided by 2, and that should equal 5. 10 divided by 2 is 5, and 5 is equal to 5, so that does work. Let's go ahead and take a look at our second example. We are dividing by 3, which means we are going to have to multiply by 3 on both sides. Our 3's cancel, and h equals 21. If we go ahead and check our answers, you'll put 21 in for h. 21 divided by 3 should get me to 7. 21 divided by 3 is 7, and 7 is equal to 7. So last two examples for you to try on your own. Go ahead and figure out what k is equal to, and go ahead and figure out what g is equal to, and then check your answers with mine. So you'll see that in our first example, k should be equal to 20, and g should be equal to 6. And when you check your answers, they check out to be right. Make sure you're doing the check because that's going to help you make sure that you do have that right answer. So just to reiterate, kind of wrap up what we talked about so far, one-step equations, solving one-step equations, you're using the inverse operation. So the opposite operation to find the variable. And here are your 3 steps. You're going to draw that line straight down through the equal sign, use the inverse operation to get the variable or letter by itself, and then remember, whatever you do to one side of the equal sign, you do on the other side.